And somewhere on that journey, you go see a man in a dhoti saying he prayers in front of a chandi. Then and only then you'll understand what is a cosmopolitan nation. There's no room for prejudice at all. United we stand, divided we fall. So to always is here in Trinbego, Akokaliano Danyaho. Let us live as one under the sky. Jahaji high, brotherhood of the boat. Jahaji high, brotherhood of the boat. Jahaji high. Kumaye, Zindawe. Kumaye, Zindawe, ayayo. 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 Kumaye, Zindawe. I am the seed of my father. He is the seed of my grandfather, who is the seed of Mahmoud Acha. He came from Calcutta, a stick and a bag on his shoulder. He took banana capra. So I am part seed of India. India, the Indian can ship on the slavery, bind together two races in it. There was no more mother, India just mother Trini. My Bahuta planted sugar cane down in the Caroni plain. Ramlog and Bastel percussion eye. Jahaji Pai, brotherhood of the boat. Jahaji Pai, brotherhood of the boat. Jahaji Pai.
I went to the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago in August 2003, and the minister, and told him that there was bid rigging taking place in Udicott.
Patrick, could I be like you? If so, I sing in the tune. Still can't win the crown. They just teach me in tongue. Can't buy my own house, no. Look at renting still. But just like you, is a palace I want to build. Maybe I have to be a politician in TNT. Cause Calypso money, can't build no palace for me. I want a palace just yours, give me that. I'm telling you flat, flat, flat. One fish for 20,000. I want about 10 dozen. Diploma in soon. Yes. Could we start in the month of June? Yes. Did you take land from the poor? Yes. Will they still vote you for sure? Yes. Oh no. 1 million. 2 million. 3 million. 4 million. 1 billion. Who said? 2 billion. 3 billion. 4 billion. Is it true your eyes very long?
That journey, 150 years gone already. Whether you're Hindu, Muslim, or Christian, let's walk this land hand in hand. We could only prosper if we try. take a trip back to your root. And somewhere on that journey, saying the prayers in front of a Chandi. Chandi, then there's no room for prejudice at all. United we stand, divided we fall. So to always is here in Trinbego, Akokaliano Danyaho. Let us live as one under the sky. Jahajin high, brotherhood of the boat. Jahajin high, brotherhood of the boat. Jahajin high. Kumaye, Zindawe, Kumaye, Zindawe, ayo. Kumaye, Zindawe, Kumaye, Zindawe, ayo. He came from Calcutta, a stick and a bag on his shoulder. He told banana capra. So I am Patsy. India, the Indian can ship on the slavery, bind together two races in unity. There was no more mother, India just mother Trini. My Bahuta planted sugar cane down in the Caroni plain. Ram Logan Baster Prakashanai. Jahaji Pai. Brotherhood of the boat. Jahaji Pai. Brotherhood of the boat. Jahaji Pai.
I went to the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago in August 2003 as a Minister of Government in Trinidad and Tobago, a PNM minister, and told him that there was bid rigging taking place in Udicott.
Patrick, could I be like you? Yes. Should I fool so I sing in the tune? Still can't win the crown. They just teach me in tongue. Can't buy my own house, no. Look at renting still. But just like you, is a palace I want to build. Maybe I have to be a politician in TNT. Cause Calypso money, there build no palace for me. I want a palace just like yours, with about 300 doors. Calypso can give me that. I'm telling you flat, flat, flat. One fish for 20,000. I want about 10 dozen. Diploma in soon. Yes. Could we start in the month of June? Yes. Did you take land from the poor? Yes. Will they still vote you for sure? Yes. Oh no. 1 million. 2 million. 3 million. 4 million. 1 billion. Who said? 2 billion. 3 billion. 4 billion. Did you spend money to the ground? Yes. I hear the master bedroom alone. Patrick will blow me away. The figures they make known. Look, I don't know what to say. They say the dining area for sure cost about 6 forevermore. You gone and you build your palace without no regards for the poor. Hospitals deteriorating, no beds to see about the sick. Police and fire stations collapsing, still you gone and build it quick. If it's palace you love so much and it makes you feel alright, should they put me out the apartment and sleep in my you tonight? I want a palace just like yours with about 300 doors. Yes, I want it in full view, like you I could show off to. Why you living like a king? Do you think God will forgive you?
Yes.
Do you know that he loves you too?
Yes.
Would you change from your selfish ways?
Yes.
Will you give to God his praise?
Yes.
Do you have an altar inside of here?
Yes.
Do you kneel down and say your prayer?
Yes.
Do you take Holy Communion?
Yes.
Did you get rid of the Obia woman?
In a palace.
In Trinidad a few months ago with the Prime Minister of Trinidad. He walks in to the with me everywhere, he said. God speaks to her. In fact, it's a God.
In a palace.
People say every day that and more would be before.
Yes, that sounds right to me. That should be in the Constitution too.
Yes, Anita. Pleasant good night to all and sundry. You caught me napping there because I was so enthused. I was so, of course, fascinated with the presentation, of course, of the late, great, but nonetheless, and fascinating indeed, with the greatest degree of effervescence and with the greatest session of calypso. I am talking about, of course, the late, great, of course, the late great. I wonder if you know. The late great. I wonder if you know. I will give you, of course, or leave that as a quiz on a regular basis because of his presence on the ground report. Yes, I mean, a very humble man he was. And of course, his part has been a loss because, of course, when one looks at his absence and given the quality of material that he would bring to the fore, quite apart from Chalk Dust, quite apart from Sparrow, obviously. Yes, but in terms of his dedication and his presentations, and annually, it seems as though he had a nag for calypso. Yes, indeed. And whilst, of course, you could put him in a separate category of Chalk Dust and Sparrow and Kitchener and so on, he has certainly made his mark. Yes, indeed. I'll tell you later down the road if nobody calls me to tell me who that Calypsonian was. And in my mind is having regarded to the fact that he put together a beautiful political commentary demonstrating and, of course, indicating the greed, the PNM, particularly not that they were Mahabir, Kamaluddin Mohammed, over in Padmore, John Donaldson, and, of course, the man who confessed that, of course, all are we thief. All are we thief, yes, indeed. So we know that from time to time there has been confession. There has been confession, my friend. And tonight, there will be more confessions tonight as we continue to expose and explore the flaws and the deceptions and the what I consider to be the abject incompetence of a government that has lost its way, refused to lie down, but want to continuously hoodwink the population into them believing that somehow they are credible and that they provide the required solutions to the society of Trinidad and Tobago today. And it is as though they are plagued with blight. They are plagued, of course, with a curse. It is failure after failure, because only yesterday in the Parliament the question was asked, and that has been settled since 1899 and further ratified in 1966. He had no answer. He was in a state of optimism. He preferred not to broach our fair share and probably too much an overdose of failures by this government. They started with sandals. Certainly, because hogwash will mean at least a liquid or a viscous material. But it will be appropriate to describe Rowley and his bunch of blights that has, of course, descended on Trinidad and Tobago, as he talked about, of course, the sandals and the new dispensation and the diversification and the fact that we have to go into tourism and that we want a 5-star hotel and we want the brand, of course, that they prescribe for the country, sandals, and they want no other brand, and they will be not pursuing any other brand. But of course, and you had the same Stuart Young and the same Rowley advocating, so much so that the Minister of Finance, quite apart from the employment that it will generate at the construction stage, but you will have $500 million expected a year annually from sandals at a red cent. And it is the same argument that they are advocating for property tax. But as usual, in their blighted, what I consider to be engulfment, their blighted disposition, their blighted utterances, circumstance, and non-production, they told us that they will never pursue property tax back in 2015. Guys, it's really a mischievous spirit. Guys, today, that is the for a major tax collection or revenue earning or revenue collection mechanism. We ain't talk yet about we ain't talk about that yet and what it is proposed to do. And at the same time, sometime after the revenue, the authority was proposed, and in the process, this in the Inland Revenue Department, in the public service, and when, of course, the moratorium, or should I say the amnesty that was introduced, the 2 or 3 amnesties that was introduced by this government, telling people, listen, if you pay up your tax, you don't have to pay back taxes or gain any penalties. Well, it was the same Imsbert who told us that they collected more than they expected on both or the occasions. And guess what? He went further to commend the Inland Revenue workers, the officers, the public servants, telling them that for your assiduousness, for your hard work, for your productivity, the government wants to commend you for generating more or collecting more taxes than they anticipated with respect to those amnesties. Yeah. But yet still, after all of that, in a total exhibition of betrayal, perfidiousness, they are now pursuing, of course, the rev authority, which is to replace or displace all of those in the process. That is how dangerous Rowley and they are. So they extract benefits, commend themselves, but will think nothing of those workers who have families to mind, who have mortgages to pay, some still paying rent, they have their cars to pay for, they have their children to send to school, they have the children with all of the amenities that is of modern convenience and living today. Because if you don't have a vehicle, transportation is still required, and therefore you have to commute by way of public transportation anyway. All of that putting pressure on one salary, which the government has a living wage. And don't tell me that they increase, of course, the minimum wage, and therefore some conditions or some conditional at least consideration must be given to that. No. Because in the context of Trinidad and Tobago and in the $2.50 that they add on to make it, I think, 17 something. When in fact, an hour. So I'm not going to be fooled. It is merely an overture, a conditional offer or giving so that they could salvage some kind of consideration by the population. While, of course, the multiple and plethora of other devious acts that will easily consume an additional $2.50 as far as minimum wage is concerned, we should give them no leeway, none whatsoever. That is an insult. And then, of course, starting with 2% for the public servants, and then, of course, culminating at 4%. Unacceptable in the circumstance. But it is, there we are at. There we are at. People, of course, it's getting a bit hot in here already, and we now start. So I trust somebody in studio is listening to me in here and making hot, and I expect the cooling apparatus to be triggered. So I'm sending a double message here, one to you and one, of course, to those in studio. I trust somebody is hearing me. It is making hot in here already. So I expect that the fan will come in addition to the air condition that is on, because it's hot. It's really hot. So, people, I am making the point that this government continues to disappoint, and that the offerings that they would have given us is really and truly poison ivy. Poison ivy, and not just a bouquet, but a whole forest of poison ivy. And if we take it much longer, or we embrace it in totality, Trinidad and Tobago will not be the better for it. That being as it may, and having regard to the deceptions that we have identified so far, I must tell you about, of course, additional issues that may have either gone past you or you may have not noticed, but we have a duty and responsibility to, of course, attract your attention on them. And those that are less conspicuous, we need to bring it to your attention as well, so you will see the totality of the intent of this administration to deceive their way, to lie their way into government, in government, and hopefully they will lie their way, so they believe, to another term, when in fact the population has reached their zenith, their tolerance level of this level of not just shenanigans, not just of mismanagement, not just of corruption and nepotism, not just total and absolute collections and promotion of graft, and of course greed, and the raiding of the treasury of the country through the cabinet recusal mechanism, and believing that they are not candidate for criminal investigation. That is something that may work to the advantage of the law enforcement agency when the PNM gets out of office with Rowley and the UNC returns to office with Kamala. Let them subject themselves to a false state of complacency and believe that they would have, of course, covered all of their tracks so that they can avoid or escape culpability. Yes, that is what they believe. When a person does something over and over, there are two. You become overconfident, one, or you are lulled into a state where doing it over and over, and while the results are negative, you continue to do it, and therefore one can classify such an individual suffering from manic, depressive, mental deformity. Yeah, mental deformity. In other words, manic depressive psychosis, where they cannot tell the difference between reality and real. And that is good. That is good. Let Rowley and they plunge themselves, submerge themselves into this false sense of reality, and the people will deal with them as we saw in Tobago. As we saw in Tobago. And one of the issues that I want to let you know with respect to the under Rowley, to invade, to trespass, to infiltrate independent institutions with individuals who owe an allegiance to the PNM. So they believe, obviously they would have gotten into the high offices that they would have been operating from or in, obviously because of some kind of PNM connection, and that they can compromise their integrity and that of the institution in order to make the party, make this criminal enterprise, this organization called the PNM that has migrated or metamorphosized or mutated to a criminal enterprise. They believe that that is a sustainable disposition, and it will always be so, as Rowley continues, of course, to try to deepen that disposition, and so that in spite of their poor performance on crime and criminality, we heard recently, madman, National Security Minister, dreadlocks, the peacock, plenty flair but no depth, Hines, telling us that in spite of their poor performance, the people will still vote for them. And that small corner of the country will continue, of course, to subscribe to the abuse and the self-inflicted and the level of misplaced loyalty that they have demonstrated for too long not to be concerned. Let's go straight, of course, to the lines. Let's hear what the caller has to say. Professor, good night. Welcome. Professor, good night. Welcome. Professor, good night. Welcome. Professor, good night. Welcome. All right. So we have lost that one. Yes, indeed. People. So who is that person? Yeah, in this case, a person, but belong to an institution that has, of course, demonstrated a proclivity, a tendency, and compromise, of course, the institution in order to promote the PNM. None other than, of course, this fella. Seals, yes. Seals. Michael Seals. He was, of course, recently, he took the oath for an independent Senate, PNM, therefore government senator. Yes, temporary senator. And then, of course, he contested the Tabakit seat as well. Of course, he got a licking just as Gypsy in Maruga. But the fact of the matter is we need to know them. He was the man who was the secretary of the Police Welfare Association. He was the man that was charged for misbehavior. He was charged, of course, yes, for the sedition, because as a police officer and a senior ranking officer in the Police Welfare Association 2nd Division, it turned out that he was intrinsically involved in the day of policing just before the 2015 general elections, when they had the whole of Trinidad and Tobago under siege, the police, ostensibly because they were taking industrial action for which they have no authority, but they orchestrated a device, a scam, to shut down the country by, of course, slowly examining tires and lights of vehicles, and brought the country to a standstill. That fella. And today, he has been identified by Rowley to be a temporary senator, but more significantly, he contested the 2020 general elections for the seat of Tabakit. Yes, look him there. Michael Seals, a former police officer, charged for sedition, because he was part and parcel of a team. I cannot say that the rank and file of the police would have been part of the planning of that day of policing that shut down the country effectively. I cannot say that. But as a leader myself, I can see an executive, if it is so desperate and desirable for them, they can mislead their followers. So I am not blaming the rank and file of the police. Let me get that clear. What I'm saying is that the leadership would have known that that was a scam to bring the government of the day to its knees, because he was charged for sedition simply because he said that the then government, the Kamala Persad-Bissessa government, is not just email gate, you know. It's a series of nastiness that took place. And yes, indeed, it is making hot in here, as you would see. And therefore, I expect, of course, there's somebody in studio to help me out. Yes, indeed. But the fact of the matter is, Yes, indeed. Let's go straight to the line and see what is happening here. Let's go to the lines. I want to thank those in studio for responding to my call. for some breeze to, of course, cool me down. Yes, because I'm becoming dehydrated in here. A pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor.
Hey, Mr. Lennox, good night, sir.
Good night to you.
Hello?
Good night to you. Are you hearing me loud and clear? Are you hearing me?
Yes, I hear you loud and
All
clear.
right, good. Right, okay then. Go ahead.
Yes, sir, I hear you.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
tell me something. What had transpired with that matter where Rowley and the boys was to go and see the High Court judge? I didn't hear that again.
That with respect to the appeal of the former commissioner of police, is that one you're talking about? Because there are so many, so you have to narrow it down for me.
Something like that. Well, something I know where
Oh yeah, when 9 of them were supposed to attend court. Yeah.
go and see the judge.
I think that date has been postponed, but
What come out?
I think the date for appearing before the judge has been postponed, or is sometime next month, which of course in December. So I will check it out and I'll bring the information for you tomorrow night, and of course I will mention it on the ground report tomorrow to make certain that we are on the right track in terms of the information. Yeah. All right. Anything else?
Right. Okay. Calling from Locketa. Yes, I'm listening.
All right. Thank you very much.
On
Thank
the
you very
line,
much.
I'm listening.
I don't get it, my friend. Yes, indeed. So there you have it, Michael Seals. So you see the ability, another example of the ability of the PNM to infiltrate serious institutions that are supposed to be independent under the law, under the constitution of the country, and these people are prepared, of course, to compromise their integrity because they believe that the PNM, a criminal enterprise, is much more important to them and their survivability, and maybe, of course, to come part and parcel of that 1%, that oligarch that they have, of course, organized and supported in order to dominate and to, of course, capture power in this country at the expense of the rest of us. And we must, of course, say that is not democratic, that is not right, that is wrong. And, of course, we must resist as a people, and that is what it is all about. But we must expose them. And Seals is one of them. He was, of course, recently, as I said, I think yesterday or on Tuesday, yes, he was, of course, sworn in as a temporary senator. And I said that some time ago. I said, where are Seals? Next thing, he's behind the scenes somewhere, eating his chops, eating from the trough silently when he has come forth. Just like, of course, the former acting commissioner of police who raided, beat him at will. Williams, not the Williams that was replaced by former commissioner, not that one. It's another Williams that was before him. He is chairman of the Airport Authority. Chairman of the Airport Authority. That fella. So we understand, for 30 pieces of silver, they are prepared, of course, to do the evil biddings of this group of people who unmeritoriously want to stay in office, a bunch of criminals who are prepared, of course, to engage in of course, illegal acts, misbehavior in public office, abuse their office. They are totally and absolutely scared. Their trepidation, I'm sure, has never been so low, because we have people who are prepared, of course, to take up the gauntlet, because there can be many like me who can take their monies and, of course, engage in a nightly program like this one, and, of course, tell the government as it is, and, of course, the very government are watching, sometimes in amazement of what we know and what we are prepared to tell the population in order for us, of course, to salvage our democracy. Our democracy. We didn't know about Helen Drayton. We didn't know about, of course, the Catholic priest, but Father Harvey. We didn't know that he was a rank and unadulterated PNM supporter and was prepared, of course, to act as he tried to generate some kind of exorcism around the Parliament building when it was on Rising Road. And the Lord moves in mysterious way. You don't mock God. Because he ended up being hogtied in his own presbytery up in Gonzales. And he hightailed out of Trinidad into Grenada, being the Archbishop there, and telling, of course, his followers, the parishioners, listen, don't get involved in politics. He has learned his lesson. We also know, of course, of Justice Ventor, who is still around and who just got, of course, $11,000 for doing nothing. So-called, of course, bogus, clearly, as we saw with the emails, a bogus commission of inquiry, and Rowley so stupid, so puerile intellectually, and so covetous to, of course, try to displace even the opposition so that he will have none. Goes to the Parliament and still have a joint select committee to look at the same question, what the commission of inquiry that was, of course, engaged, already given $11 million in $11 million already, led by Ventor, who was, just in case you don't know, he was the man that came out of the Integrity Commission when the majority of the commissioners in the Integrity Commission examining, of course, those fake and false and decrepit piece of paper that Rowley brought to the Parliament, saying that there are emails, and went on a tirade. He went on to, of course, defaming the opposition and the Prime Minister, and saying that they were part and parcel of a conspiracy to kill a journalist. But that was the man who has already been given $11 million. But he was there back in 2015, and he came out when the Integrity Commission said in no uncertain terms that those were exactly what we know it is today, and what the as Commissioner of Police 3 years later, that it was false pieces of paper and was things that was typed in by someone. And the only person that you can, of course, identify with that typing or causing to be typed is Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley, that pernicious, evil, wicked, and diabolical, no conscience, and therefore will engage in those. So he resigned, so he has no obligation, and they have no legal constraint on him. And he came out and he said, just as what, similar, parallel to what Alrari and Rowley was saying all over Trinidad and along the East-West Corridor, in Sawa in particular, when they start to say that, listen, whether or not these things were eaten anywhere, but those buffoons, it turned out to be, but at our expense, because there they are, legal trappings of minister and prime minister. And we have to countenance and accept that because there is a cyclical scenario. Of course, we have to wait at the end of 5 years in order to get them to hell out of office. And while, of course, people are impatient, as I told some today, we must conform to the law. You see, because evil begets evil, and violence by the ballot and not by the bullet. We saw in 1990 what the bullet can do, mash up the country in more ways than one. So while they're doing things for us to mash up the country, we must have constraints and restraints. Be deliberate. We must be circumspect. We must be, of course, meticulous. And tonight, like so many other programs and conscientious Trinbagonians who are true and loyal patriots like Anil Roberts, of course, and Victor Roberts, and the Ground Report, and the Williams, and Michael Kerr in his own, of course, a program Observer. Well, so there he is, people. So I put a whole explanation around that understanding, but he is one that you will not normally see in the limelight. So it needs to be said. So we bring them into the limelight, to show that it is a deliberate plot, so that when the day of policing was, he was one of the leaders, and he should be rotting in jail today, as far as I'm concerned, having regard to his emergence now and being, of course, a candidate for the PNM in 2020, and today, of course, being a temporary senator, having been sworn in by, of course, the president of the Senate. And of course, he could only be that at the or at the instructions of Rowley, that despicable criminal, rapist, and pedophile, them fellas and them. He's a police officer and want to associate as his leader a pedophile. You see these fellas and them not only conflicted, but they are stark lunatics. They're mad. They remind me of the Latin expression non compos mentis. Anybody want to associate with the PNM, particularly with the leader that is Rowley, knowing full well that on a daily basis people are calling him off the cuff a rapist and a pedophile, and want to associate with. But I say to them, all of them, that I can discern you by your acquaintance and by your gravitation. To hell with the 30 pieces of silver, you must say, because I have been tempted as well. Andy has been tempted. I'm sure Anil Roberts and others at the PNM will love the poster, because we saw the PNM during the course of the run-up to and during, of course, the local government elections. They were prepared to poach UNC members. Whilst, of course, Rowley, when it is convenient, he will then tell you that UNC is the worst thing since sliced bread. That is in defense, not just of the UNC per se, you know, because I am not in defense of the UNC per se. I am about what is right. And they have demonstrated, of course, expressed on numerous occasions that I cannot find what Rowley and corruption. They have not brought out any corruption with respect to the what? To the mega projects of the UNC, whether it be, of course, the cycling velodrome, whether it be the aquatic center, whether it be the Couva Hospital, and whether it be the 106 schools that were in various stages of completion. We cannot find any kind. The PNM has not been able to advance it. Any kind of corruption on the part of the UNC. Those major projects that would have attracted a large sum of money, and therefore, based on what Rowley and they were telling us, it means that therefore those were the areas that they would siphon money over, but we have not seen it. Why we have not seen it? Because the PNM in government, with all the documents, all the data, all the information, have not been able to tell us or to charge anybody connected to those projects or connected to the UNC related to those projects. They have not been able to do so. What we know, however, is that having failed to, of course, ratify and to confirm and to solidify and to, of course, and to adduce the evidence that they said they have since before the 2015 general election, and they continue, of course, are asses. That is all. And what they have done instead, they connive and set up and entrap, believing that that is something that the Lord will countenance. Well, the Lord moves in mysterious ways, as I said today, his wonders to perform, because, of course, they continue, of course, to on themselves. They continue to defecate on themselves. And as one of my But of course, my external contributor would say they suffer from coprophagia. They eat their own filth. That is the 10 to 2015 administration under Kamala Persad-Bissessar. It turns out to be a debacle. It turned out to be the spit in the sky and it falls in the face. But of course, with all kinds of eggs over their faces. Are talking about, of course, trying to set up Anand Ramlogan and Ramdeen, a former Attorney General and, of course, a Senator. And it turns out that it was a concoction, it was a figment of Dr. Rowley's pernicious evil, as if they have a bottomless pit of evil that they, from time to time, will bring to the fore, as we saw in that particular case where they set up Anand Ramlogan and Ramdeen with a fake accusation by, of course, Vincent Nelson, a lawyer, and giving him $10 million in order, of course, to lie and, of course, bear false witness against a fellow man, a fellow legal luminary. Oh, what a tangle web they weave when they first set out to deceive. And the hole you dig, according to the old people, for others, because you are evil, because you are wicked, because you are deceptive, they fall in. That when the time comes, seals at them, better don't say that they distancing themselves and they didn't know, etc. Because we have the ground report and others who have been warning them that the toxicity of Dr. Rowley knows no limit, and the PNM is a toxic and criminal enterprise, and therefore they must make a decision now, but close to 2025, and they start, of course, to disassociate and dismember themselves from the PNM. We will be noting that. And as I said, that man was central to the day of policing when he said that the UNC administration wanted to stay longer than their time in office. And that is why they don't want to pay them and rile up the police service to engage in, by and large, misfeasance. Misfeasance at minimum. And he, of course, was charged for engaging, of course, in activities against the sitting government, and having regard to the position that he held. He knew very well that the people would have been concerned beyond the police service, but did it on the pretext that he wants, of course, more benefits to the police. When you had Kamala Persad-Bissessar introduced a facility for persons, police officers, and all law enforcement agents who would have died in the course of duty to get $1 million to assist their bereaved family. And that man scuttled that, and Rowley and them playing they know, and saying that that when the opportunity presented itself in the killing of that police officer by another police officer, friendly fire, but trying to blame, of course, a person that was of interest to them. Remember that Diego Martin shooting? They were in a state of quandary as to the $1 million that the man's family was supposed to get. And they said that there was no policy, and trying, of course, to blame, when in fact, all you have to do is to take a decision at the level of the cabinet. They could take decision at the level. And of course, Al-Wari and other members take a decision to say one time until a policy is put in place for that young police officer in Diego Martin in the course of his policing duties. Look them there. Yes, indeed. Yes, you need to know. You need to know. You need to be conscious. Yes, you need to know. You need to know. Let's bring him back again so you know the guy. Michael Seals, a temporary senator recently. Yes. Let us complete that because it is important.
Prior, Dr. Rowley said he will write to opposition leader Kamala Persad-Bissessar.
I intend to write to her and to ask her to supply or to receive personnel from the government on the issue of, let us see.
Dr. Rowley said trying to unite with the opposition is not something new, as he has been trying to do so even before he became Prime Minister. Rowley said he even voted for the People's Partnership-led government's budget in 2015. And when he became Prime Minister that year, he reached out to the opposition leader, thinking he'd be able to meet with mutual respect.
One of the problems that we have in the country
He wants respect.
is that tolerant.
In addition to trying to work with the opposition, he said government has its own plans to tackle crime.
We will not cooperate with the government of Trinidad and Tobago on any matter. We will isolate them for as long as they're in office until they leave office.
Dr. Rowley said trying to unite with the opposition is not something new, as he has been trying to do so even before he became Prime Minister.
We will not cooperate with the government of Trinidad and Tobago on any matter. We will isolate them for as long as they're in office until they leave office. Section 34. We want the whole hog.
This is not the beginning of the end. It is the end of the beginning of our action, but it is the beginning of the end of the Kamala Persad regime. But it is the beginning of the end of the Kamala Persad regime. But it is the beginning of the end of the Kamala Persad regime.
We will not cooperate with the government of Trinidad and Tobago on any matter.
Dr. Rowley said
it was the beginning of the end of the Kamala Persad-Bissessar administration. The man deliberately concocted those emails. We know now by retrospection that he was deliberate, orchestrative, and choreographed the entire scheme. And he should be a candidate for treason, no bail. All now, because that has no time limit. But of course, because he used the cover of the parliament, just as Farley did to castigate him, he was vexed and saying that the THA doesn't have the same privilege and protection of its members like the national parliament. When he realized that he made an ass of himself, he decided to go after the fella who gave Farley the information. But no one must go after the person who gave Rowley the so-called email simply because he made it up himself. He made it up himself. And putting in it conspiracy to kill a journalist. That is unforgivable in any country. We really not living in a real place.
he became Prime Minister.
Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley has blamed the high crime rate on the failure of the past UNC administration to appoint a commissioner of police. It was one of the many topics the PNM political leader addressed at a virtual meeting held in the Tunapuna constituency. He said that even with talk about crime and solving the scourge, the UNC, when in power, left the police service without a commissioner for a long period of time.
Proceeded not to hire a commissioner of police for 3 years. Crime exploding in the country. If you hear them talk about crime now as this problem for the country, and they always have a plan, and they have plan for crime. They're building a dome now, so who inside, who outside, they're building a dome. They're building a dome now, so who inside, who outside, they're building a dome. They're building a dome now, so who inside, who outside,
That level of hubris, that level of contempt, that level of idiosyncrasy, that level of arrogance, that level of pretending that he know it all and making a mockery and a joke of serious matters and looking for our sympathy and support. I say we have to condemn him in totality as head of the PNM and head of the government to be making such a triviality of a serious matter, talking about a dome, when in fact, of course, the opposition leader was talking about a dragnet, a security system, but he interpreted that as if he's a little child watching a sci-fi movie talking about a dome. That ass.
A dome.
Listen.
You're losing the war against the criminal element.
Yeah.
You're losing the war against the criminal element. But you hold the government accountable. And the government must be held accountable. The country is awash in blood. There isn't a news item in this country where there isn't a good chance that a major part of the news is who killed who. The people of this country are quite correctly holding this government accountable to secure the country and to make you feel safe. The people of this country are quite correctly holding this government accountable to secure the country and to make you feel safe. You're losing the war against the criminal element. You're losing the war against the criminal element. But you hold the government accountable. And the government must be held accountable. The country is awash in blood. There isn't a news item in this country where there isn't a good chance.
Is this government at a...
We are trying to ensure that the people whose job it is to respond to the criminal to do so effectively. And we are some of it announced, some of it not announced. We've made certain changes and we are expecting that
Facebook and the YouTube, tell a friend, tell our enemy, tell anyone. A pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor. Pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor.
Good night,
Good, I'm all right, my friend. Just working hard as usual. Yay. Yes.
Yeah, you're sounding like a Beatles song there, boy. Looking at like a dog.
Yes, that's what it's song in?
I'm hearing that the Lynch report is being handled. Huh?
But report that for me.
I'm hearing that the Lynch report has been handed in.
Repeat that for me now. I ain't you.
The Lynch. I'm hearing that the Lynch report has been handed in.
Oh, I see. The Lynch report. Yes, okay.
Is
that is
true?
the divers. Yes, okay. All right. Well, it was supposed to be at the end of this month. Yeah, I'm hearing you. Yeah, the Lynch report. Yeah, I'm hearing you. Go ahead.
Right. All I wanted to know is it's been handed in to the president.
Oh, you want to know? No, I don't know. But it was supposed to be the end of this month, and today's what? Today's what, the 28th? Sorry, the 29th. So it has to be, they have until tomorrow. Huh?
Right. But I'm hearing that the report costs $15 million.
$15 million. Wow.
That
And
is
Ventors Commission of Inquiry internet costs $11 million. Just letting you know.
Not a red cent to them that was all these mockeries of lawyers going there and eating food, drinking. What was it? Eating shrimp and drinking this and that.
Yeah,
these
right.
people have no damn shame, especially the Prime Minister says initiate something like that. And leave these poor people with their family, destitute and hungry and begging for hamper. This is what you call governance in this country. And Mr. Lynch, I know how many millions he collect by himself. I tell you, this is a travesty in this country.
Oh yes. Yeah,
if that is true, that if it costs $15 million, that is pink and dirty. Because that money cannot go to those family.
Yeah, boy.
Right? At least $3 million each for each of them. For them. But no, they still don't want to, they don't want to tarnish Petrotin name in this. But I tell you, Gun and company, I will take on that case full bone and fight that case straight to the Privy Council, to the government, out of the pants and donkey short.
Yeah, boy. I
I ain't
agree.
care.
Yeah. I agree.
Because they make a mockery out of everything there and they cover up this entire situation
Yeah.
with Petrotrin. And your best friend, Mr. George, remember
Yeah.
he should have been facing manslaughter with our charges.
Yes, indeed.
All
I
them
agree with
fellas
you.
participate on having these 4 divers suffocate and dead inside of that place, you know.
Yeah, boy. But that
Because
was a
them
horrible
call up
death, you
and
know.
search before you even start. They call up and search before you even start, you know.
Yeah, boy.
And yet this Prime Minister, I want to see what the President going to do with our report. Because it's handling to her and it's up to she to give it to the Prime Minister for he to come in the Parliament to talk about it or shelve
Yeah,
it.
yes. We'll see.
I go wait and see. I waiting to see how that money spent behind this thing and what happens after that.
Yeah.
So that is a travesty.
Yeah, they are prepared to
Have a good
sacrifice
night,
the
everyone.
people in order to get their way. I mean, that is horrendous. That is a piece of madness, yes.
All about them is all about sacrificing for the rich. And telling them lawyers.
Yeah,
You think them lawyers who lining by the corner there? They just hire Chelon's lawyer.
yeah, boy.
How about the deal on that?
Yeah. Yes, thank you very much, of course, for that intervention. And yes, indeed. Another cover-up in the making. Let's wait and see. But typical of this government to sacrifice the population. We saw it, of course, with Petrotrin. Today, the oil refinery could have been making, we could have been awash with money. All kinds of excuses they are making now for closing down that money-making facility as confirmed by Imsbert subsequently. But more significantly, to keep Rowley there, to continue to be our bane, to continue to, of course, be like a tick in our rear. That evil, bald-headed, ugly son of a gun. You cannot have any sympathy for these people. There must be a persistent and consistent hatred for them. Your animosity must know no bounds. As they continue, of course, to insult us and to pretend that somehow they can fool us in perpetuity. And we must have none of it. We must have none of it. We must see them for who they are and what they are and what they have caused us to experience. And experience is the best teacher. Always remember that. Experience is the best teacher. Seals was, of course, made a senator, a temporary senator. I want to also, of course, invite you to another episode of a confession tendency after time, because they are lying, to forget what they said in the past. Sagacious and, of course, persons who are very observant, perspicacious. We are perspicacious. Will not allow them to get away with the evil and the misbehavior and the criminal conduct in public office. And let you know, so that you know that you must stay steadfast and be implanted in your minds, particularly those of the electorate, and you have children, and you have, of course, families, and you have food to put on your tables, and therefore when you go to the polls, whenever the election must be, you must know what to do. You must, of course, take revenge for what they have done. Let's continue with Rowley and his convolutions about, of course, this overture he made never meant it to, of course, have talks, crime talks. But that time, it was a crime hoax. That is what it was. A crime hoax that he engaged in. Crime hoax. Let's continue and hear Rowley. Don't forget, people, of course, we have our hamper drive. We are getting, of course, slow but steady support. The warehouse is not yet filled, but we are getting there as we address more children and more families this year. A pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor. A pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor.
A pleasant good night to you, Lennox. A pleasant good night to you and to everybody on the chat. Lennox,
yes.
No memory. You see, when you tell the truth, you can open your mouth and say it, but when you're lying, you have to remember what you said before. And yesterday in the Senate, Arnold Roberts exposed Stuart Young for the liar that he is, both he and Keith Rowley. Especially with that visit from Des Rodriguez in 2020 when you shut down the COVID.
That's right, 2020 and COVID, yes.
Yesterday in the Senate. Right, all the lies that they told about Delcy and them coming here, it was exposed yesterday in the Senate. The whole story turned around because we were told first it was COVID they talk about, then it was the refugees and then they came to talk about, then it was hampers they came to buy, and he didn't know who was on the plane. He didn't know the plane was sanctioned. He didn't know nothing. He was like chirps. Well, yesterday he said it. He knew everything that went on. That came here, the truth came out. They came discussing since 2020. I waited to see how they're going to spin that now. And then they want to pin everything to the chest of the see. But you see, you know the best, you know that saying, the best offense is a good defense?
Yes.
They're going to throw something down the UNC to get away from what it is went on in the Senate. And I hope Arnold and them, well, especially Arnold, take it to the platform. Don't let them forget it. Reminding people again and again that we as citizens were locked out of this country. We can come in, right? They allowed people to come here. He always lied about their intent to bringing the cancer patient back to Trinidad. Say that he told Derek Chin that what order for him to come back to the country, open the borders for him, bring back the lady. Derek Chin said that's a lie. His sister told him what was happening to the lady. He reached out to the lady and told her to prepare herself to come back with him. But you see, they feel that we all have short-term memory in this country, but we don't. We have memories like elephants. Long, long, long. We remember everything. We remember this by these liars. And don't like when we come and bring the facts to them. Too bad, all they know what to do. Don't let it go hit all on the way out. They're not going to stop. And
yes,
I feel, they feel that somebody's afraid of them, you know, Lennox. They feel somebody's afraid of them.
Yes.
They want to attack me anywhere they could, every time I open my mouth and bring the facts to them. I have no reason to lie. I will lie. I am not a PNMite. Everything I come with here, anywhere, based on facts, I can back it up. Like I said before, let them continue with their life and we will expose them. We will expose them.
Definitely.
Lennox, thanks a lot for listening to me and good night.
Yes, same to you, same to you. I'm tempted, people. I'm tempted. So we will pause on Rowley and his convolutions and his attempted deception. He cannot fool us again, but we need, of course, to get a good laugh. He is now comic relief as he makes a boo-boo of himself. But I thought it's important in the parliament, you see, because I have to show you, of course, that as well. He sent us a pre-action protocol letter on the ground. We lying on he, and that he and no racketeer, and he and Rowley, narcotic mules, and that they were associated, of course, with criminals, that the United States government have red flagged. Yes. And that Delcy Rodriguez, the vice president of Venezuela, was banned from a whole continent, Europe, and all of that. But he sent us a pre-action protocol letter because we were calling, he and Rowley, and saying how the hell the COVID regulations have locked down the country, and you have, of course, suspended flights to our very own residents and citizens. But somehow you gave a blight to, of course, Delcy Rodriguez. Why? And we were saying that there were no doctors there, so it couldn't be COVID, and it couldn't be the interests of the people of Venezuelans that were here. Why would you want them? Or why would you want such a person here at the, not just the commencement, but at the peak in the context of Trinidad and Tobago of COVID? And why couldn't you use, of course, other means such as, of course, social media or teleconferencing or video conferencing? No, you had something to hide. That is why. But listen to what they had to hide, because Rowley said that he didn't know who came. Then afterwards, he said that he get to realize. Well, in Parliament recently, George Young said that Delcy Rodriguez, and he invited Delcy Rodriguez only 2 days ago in the Parliament. You see, they just lie and forget that there's lie. They're lying. And believe that, know that he believed that the dragon gas deal will come true. He then spilled the beans, forgetting what he said in the past. The past was that it was an arrangement between him and Rodriguez alone. And Rowley did not know anything about it. And Rowley claimed that he did not know in the beginning. Well, Stuart Young said in the Parliament, in the Senate, on a debate on the matter of the dragon gas scenario, that Rowley gave him authority. And that is believable. That is rational. There was a lockdown. Nothing could have come in. So Rowley had to give him, okay, he couldn't just do that unilaterally as Minister of National Security then. So let us go straight to hear him confess as the external contributor, Ms. Santa Cruz, has introduced. We'll get back, of course, to Rowley and his convoluted, and of course his hypocrisy, that somehow he was in support and never, of course, maligned or resisted support for the UNC under Kamala Persad-Bissessar. I am just giving you what you already know. It is rhetorical, but it's important that we keep it in the deep recesses and indelibly implanted in our intellect, minds, and of course, being.
This OFAC license that this motion is about, when the United States puts sanctions, the only people who can give permission for you to operate without you attracting sanctions, and the truth is there are two categories of sanctions. There's the first level and the second level, secondary. It is the Americans and American citizens, American companies who attract the sanctions at the first level. We are at the second level. So we don't easily attract those, but it is a huge risk and no one will do business whilst that is taking place. I hear a lot of talk about the amount of trips that are made to the United States and to Venezuela. It is for a singular purpose. The only purpose. This OFAC license that this motion is about, when the United States puts sanctions, the only people who can give permission for you to operate without you attracting sanctions, and the truth is there are two categories of sanctions. There's the first level and the second level, secondary. It is the Americans and American citizens, American companies who attract the sanctions at the first level. We are at the second level. So we don't easily attract those, but it is a huge risk and no one will do business whilst that is taking place. I hear a lot of talk about the amount of trips that are made to the United States and to Venezuela. It is for a singular purpose. The only purpose of those trips is that we were always advocating on behalf of the people of Trinidad and Tobago for a future for Trinidad and Tobago. And thankfully, it has met with a great measure of success. You will recall the Prime Minister in one of his transparent press conferences not too long ago saying that it is as though you are pushing a boulder up a hill. Fortunately, a few days later, a few weeks later, the end of September, we got the license, got the agreement from Venezuela. You would recall, and I'm reminding the population, that every step of the way, as we make progress, and I'll give a quick history here, I am there to provide guidance. I am there because I am the government representative who negotiates with the governments. So when, as I will tell you in a short while, I made 8 trips to the United States last year, several of them with the Prime Minister. So when I sit in the Department of State, or the Department of Energy, or the Department of Agriculture, which was part of our strategy, recognizing that we're a huge producer of ammonia that is needed in the world post the Russia-Ukraine crisis and war, that is the strategy we're implementing on behalf of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. If I does not wake up in the morning, and we pursued that. And
mind you, all that talk and Point Lisa's 11 companies leave that produce the same ammonia and other agricultural chemicals that he's talking about. Over the last 8 years, let me repeat, 8 companies left Point Lisa's. It's Point Lisa's he's talking about that produces, of course, utilizing gas as either a fuel or a raw material for the production of ammonia and other types of fertilizer. So he's talking that there and forgetting that 11 companies leave producing the same thing that he say in post Ukraine-Russia war. They're thinking that, well, if they were pursuing that in true people, and I told you all that, I told you all that one day Isa will be on demand after that war, before the war came. Let's go straight, of course, to the let's go straight to the lines. I mean, these fellas are making a mockery of people's intelligence. A pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor. Welcome to the corridor.
You're sure it's ammonia you're talking about? Because there are plenty of people with pneumonia.
With pneumonia?
Okay, go and take them up on here. Yeah, wait, hold it plant at the Venezuela with controls and Charles Candy and things, because I can't see how they getting money to pay them the Venezuelans. Where they get the US currency to pay them for Venezuela, they want to keep money, and they want to from here in the form of goods. They want money.
That's right.
So how do they pay them?
And he has not addressed that, He wants us to live in that bubble that he has created. Right. Both he and Rowley has that capacity. Only bubbles that they create for people to live in. The dead.
Lennox, I use hearing on our next radio station. You're talking about oil price with less than $1 under this government. When it reached less than $1 for the entire world, that was under the COVID prices. That when people wasn't traveling, nobody wasn't going out of their house, no plane was taking flight, people wasn't using cars or anything like that. What they expect, the entire oil belt was more or less, it was in censorship when that COVID-19 business became. Literally, PNMI come out and say this government facing action because oil become or less than $1. But we took for under a week or whatever, and after it went back up because of the global market and nobody using transportation. I can understand these people now. They want to blame a little thing, right, for what happened in the country, and then after turn around and blame everything else on cabal and the UNC for doing that because of them this happened and that happened. But they want no responsibility for what them causing.
None whatsoever. They are holier than thou. They are immaculate. Yeah.
They from the immaculate conception. But I'm telling you this, if you watch the news yesterday, I said the one and she's disabled daughter.
Yeah. They're gone.
What else?
They're gone. Yeah, they're gone.
So when we did and the one thing, you know what shameful is nice for 77 who want to say she gonna migrate?
I'm telling you, 70-something years.
And she is.
Yeah, that you know, spring chicken.
And I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if it's them and believe that this Prime Minister allowed to come in here too because once they want to stop in Spanish. So boy, I mean this PNM is very wrong than all the jokers, all the crime.
A pile of shittongs and in our faces every day.
Under this PNM jurisdiction, they see a new type of murder, man driving up with you, driving at the side of you and shooting you. They're fighting in your car, they're killing you, they're driving by real linemen and they're shooting you. Never before these things were taking place.
Never.
Until the PNM started.
Because it's a criminal gang.
Escalate crime into a different.
Yeah, it's a criminal gang that is at the helm of our affairs. And I know Shane, he traveled 8 times and 10 times. I don't care that nonsense. But they were blaming Kamala Prasad-Bissessar for traveling. And he's saying that with a straight face. I mean, that level of nincompoopishness and deception, I mean, it's unfathomable. You want to stand up and hit them one clout. They're forcing you to get violent.
At the end of the day, what the PNM have to show for all the trips that they're taking and making?
Nothing. The blight. The blight, the curse.
They're leaving. People packing up and leaving in Joe. People have no faith in this economy again. People get out of their wits now. These bandits and these vagabonds coming by your place and tell them pay tax money or else they go rob you or shoot you. And the police can't protect you because even them and all involved in some of the crime. Just place one from upside down to one side out. You understand what I'm telling you?
Yeah.
Under this government, they can talk whoever crime to symposium they want and
solution to the problem in this country. Only problem for the solution in this country. Only problem is to get rid of this albatross that has descended cursedly on this country. All right, later. Yes, indeed. Yes, people. Yes, I was making the point. This man, this ass. Let me put it next way. Instead of calling him an asshole, I'll call him a whole ass. This whole ass telling us now that they knew that the war between Ukraine and Russia would have come, preparing the country, knowing that the world will want fertilizer produced at Point Lisas as part of our petrochemical industry. But the war in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia, is just about, 2 months old? He pursuing that since 2017 and telling we, no, it's a case of any port for a storm to justify the nonsense and the lack of planning and foresight and mono stupidity. Stuart Young is telling us that they knew that the war between Ukraine and Russia was coming to utilize the industries that produce ammonia and fertilizer and so on at Point Lisas. But hear what? Hear what? How the hell you could produce it when 11 of the company among the 11 companies, among them are the very people who are producing or supposed to be producing this so-called international demand of fertilizer coming out of the Ukraine thing. It's just any port for a storm is a square peg and round hole logic that this man hit today. A square peg and round hole logic. This man is a total buffoon. This man is an ass and a half. It has to be. The Ukraine-Russia war was never on the cards. And guess what? Why he is talking that in order to justify his nonsense and believe that he's talking to fools. And as the caller rightly said, since oil prices was at $1 a barrel at one point, then what the hell you closed down Petrotrin for when you could have bought thousands of barrels, hundreds of thousands of barrels of oil at $1? All you may have to do, of course, is to pay the freight. Get a ship, bring it across and store it here for the refinery to be functional. And when, of course, it begins to work, we would have been able to get a bumper harvest, to use, of course, a agricultural term. But they're getting people damn vexed. What the nonsense you're talking? And I said it, I said that them fellas and them will say that they created the Ukraine war, but was for a different purpose. I was saying that that's how they get. And they started to boast, remember, about the windfall of $8 billion that they got. And I said, well, of course, the way how Rowley boasting about that, it means just now he will be saying that them caused the Ukraine-Russian war so that they could get a barrel of oil double and almost triple what they were getting before the war. This ass of a human being come and telling us now that they were preparing because they know after the war fertilizer and so on was in demand. And so their strategic position, they love hyperboles and grandiloquence and big talk. And they knew that the Point Lisas is emptying among those that are leaving are those that are supposed to produce the very fertilizer that this buffoon is talking about. Come on. Come on. But get the hell out of office, Nabai. And leave intelligent people alone. The people of Trinidad and Tobago are not stupid. And this is being telegraphed to the rest of the world. When I start to communicate with the major leaders of the world, I bet you, the Bamsi will start to, of course, palpitate. The Bamsi will start to palpitate.
I am sitting as a representative of the government, a representative of you, the people, saying Trinidad and Tobago has something the rest of the world doesn't have. And I said it on international TV as well. Time people didn't understand. Trinidad and Tobago has immediate capacity to produce LNG, ammonia, urea, UAN, which are all fertilizers based on unnecessary and methanol. And we're next up.
The man is despicable, lying. He talked about gas because that is what Europe wanted. And he was pretending that Trinidad and Tobago have gas because the person, now we know, they pay the man, you know. They pay the man to have that interview, you know. And he made an ass of it and an ass of himself. And of course, make us, as far as the rest of the world is concerned, see us as fools. The man talked about gas because that was the issue, because the Russians went and turned off the gas to Europe, Germany and all these countries, France and so on. But more importantly, they decided, of course, because of sell it somewhere else. So it was gas. Nobody was talking about fertilizer. How fertilizer come in? Only if you are so delusionary and you are such a nincompoop and such an asinine specimen of inhumanity and unable to think as far as your blasted nose that you would come up with that kind of blasted, illogical, irrational, incongruent, dunderheaded, stone-headed, obtuse, nincompoopish, illogic. So what I want to say now, that you cause the Ukraine-Russian war now, and you know that they go want. What Point Lisa's producing, ammonia, etc. But Point Lisa's is emptying of those companies that are producing those items. The Lara and others, I'm going to bring the companies that has left connected to the nonsense that he talking, trying to impress. He's a fool.
Proven reserves, 17 kilometers of pipeline away in Venezuela. And that is what picked up traction. So when Europe and other countries need LNG and ammonia, we have an immediate solution, not today for today, but we will fill a big global void in the need for LNG, ammonia, urea, UAN. If we get access to proven reserves of gas, that is 17 kilometers of pipeline, that can be done in a very short time frame in the scheme of things. So you will recall when I went on CNN International with Richard Quest, that was the message. At the time, it was not understood, but it was part of the strategy, and it was understood where it needed to be, because we ended up with an OFAC license that no one else has. That is part of the delivery from the very careful strategy for Trinidad and Tobago.
That the only show they got that license, which was an exercise in futility at the commencement. 2 years license for a project that could, at minimum, start to monetize itself and try to bring in a return in 4 years' time. 4 years' time. The only reason for that is because the rest of CARICOM was saying, well, all right, give them a blind. That's all. That's why Rowley was only talking CARICOM, and this fool coming and telling me that Trinidad and Tobago negotiated. Whenever Trinidad and Tobago could say in public or have said in public that without CARICOM involvement and presence and the sympathy that the Americans would have had for the region, because as an independent state, you had, of course, various emissaries from America going to Guyana and bypassing Trinidad. We saw the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, went to Guyana and bypassed Trinidad, and normally he would. We, through Kamala, sponsored a resolution at the United Nations for anti-terrorism action across the globe. So they had an obligation because in post 9/11, they were obligated and should have paid homage and should be with Trinidad and Tobago and appreciative of Trinidad and Tobago for that effort. It was Trinidad and Tobago's Prime Minister and, of course, the Jamaican Prime Minister and Obama that co-sponsored that particular resolution at the United Nations with respect, of course, to anti-terrorism across the globe. They're telling me about. They're telling me about. And what you did, you're so blasted monofocus that you couldn't even say that Maduro must not be engaged in humanity, or should I say, human rights violations, and the kind of punishment that he was giving his own people. You couldn't even say that. But you talk about Guaido and Guaido and Guaido. Guaido was a position that the Trinidad and Tobago ought to find a way to, of course, accommodate in their discourse, so that we are on the right track and the right place in history. The only reason why the Americans have softened their position on Venezuela is simply because of the Ukraine war. That's all. But if gas supply and energy supply was not affected in the way that it has, Venezuela will not have been part of the equation as far as the geopolitics is concerned, because America has enough shale gas and oil to now become not just a producer and be self-sufficient, but an exporter. They're telling me about. What you telling me about this buffoon? The next thing I expect him to say is that them caused the Ukraine and Russian war. And yet still, he cannot give us any certainty. And yet still, he cannot give us any certainty. I wouldn't say it. He's just going and sending the fools further and further and further to damnation.
You will recall in 2016 we negotiated that first memorandum of understanding. Very quickly in 2018 we had a commercial term sheet. We had agreed with Venezuela the price of gas, the allocation of gas, and that gas was set to come to Trinidad and Tobago by 2020. The next thing that happened, unfortunately, in the world of geopolitics, as small as we are caught between Venezuela and the United States. Sanctions came under a certain U.S. administration that shut that down, could not pursue the deal because the operators, Shell, would go nowhere near it because of fear of sanctions. We did not give up. We very quietly came up with a strategy as soon as possible, a change of administration in the United States, all of the time maintaining our relationship with Venezuela. When we were in the middle of COVID and our borders were closed, and the vice president of Venezuela, who remains the vice president today, Delcy Rodriguez, wrote to us diplomatically and said, I would like to come to Trinidad and Tobago, and I, as the Minister of National Security, on the advice of the Prime Minister, allowed the Vice President of Venezuela to come to Trinidad and Tobago. The opposition led the charge on behalf of President Guaido, who they don't know where he is today, to say that the Prime Minister, they wrote to the United States government that Prime Minister Keith Rowley and Stuart Young should be sanctioned. When we were in the middle of COVID and our borders were closed, and the Vice President of Venezuela, who remains the Vice President today, Delcy Rodriguez, wrote to us diplomatically and said, I would like to come to Trinidad and Tobago, and I, as the Minister of National Security, on the advice of the Prime Minister, allowed the Vice President of Venezuela to come to Trinidad and Tobago. When we were in...
Yeah, I know, on the advice of the Prime Minister. I thought Rowley didn't know anything. I thought Rowley didn't know. And I have for a Freedom of Information letter. I'm going to read it for you tomorrow, where the Permanent Secretary is saying that the Prime Minister's office said no nothing. Refer to the Ministry of National Security. Yeah, I'm going to read it for you tomorrow. I wrote because he sent us a pre-action protocol letter when we were saying that they are blasted conspirators and narcotic mules, and that they are part of a racketeering gang. But Delcy Rodriguez and Maduro. Maduro, of course, was sanctioned, and not only sanctioned, a bounty was put on his head for 15 million US. I don't know if it's dead or alive, but they want him in the United States on drug charges, drug importation charges. And you sit down with them, and now you're telling us that it was on the advice of the Prime Minister that you invited her here. Lot of cock and bull story about it was an earlier time, and it was, of course, COVID happened to be, and you wanted to make sure that they didn't have COVID, and you never could tell us you can't speak Spanish. We saw you outside of the Queen's Park Oval when you were registering, when the government was registering those Spanish people, those Spanish-speaking Venezuelans to stay here, registering them. He was on a bullhorn telling them in English, that fool, all you line up properly and be patient, everybody will be served. He take the bull, only talk Spanish. That ass and a half, that whole ass. Yes? The man is a total moron. A total moron.
And said, I would like to come to Trinidad and Tobago, and I, as the Minister of National Security, on the advice of the Prime Minister, allowed the Vice President of Venezuela to come to Trinidad and Tobago when we were in the middle of COVID and our borders were closed. And the Vice President of Venezuela, who remains the Vice President today, Delcy Rodriguez, wrote to us diplomatically and said, I would like to come to Trinidad and Tobago, and I, as the Minister of National Security, on the advice of the Prime Minister, allowed the Vice President of Venezuela to come to Trinidad and Tobago when we were in the middle of COVID and our borders were closed. And the Vice President of Venezuela, who remains the Vice President today, Delcy Rodriguez, wrote to us diplomatically and said, I would like to come to Trinidad and Tobago, and I, as the Minister of National Security, on the advice of the Prime Minister, allowed the Vice President of Venezuela to come to Trinidad and Tobago. The opposition led the charge on behalf of President Guaido, who they don't know where he is today, to say that the Prime Minister, they wrote to the government that Prime Minister Keith Rowley and Stuart Young should be sanctioned. This OFAC license that this motion is about, when the United States puts sanctions, and the truth is, there are two categories of sanctions. There's the first level.
People, I say no more. But of course, it is now 15 minutes past. I've given you back your 15 minutes. So we'll complete, of course, Rowley's convolutions, his to-in and fro-in, his, of course, square peg and wrong hole orations and oratory. And clearly, in a perpetual state of stupor or stupidity. Yeah. Trying to accuse the opposition of something that he has made it his forte, has made it part and parcel, has also made it, of course, his raison d'etre, his reason for a political existence, without which, because you cannot talk about performance, you cannot talk about productivity, you cannot talk about honesty, you cannot talk. So get the hence, you blasted Satans. And yes, Stuart Young, we catch you now. Your ass is grass. Your ass is grass. Because you never mentioned in your presentation, because the presentation was all about gas, and of course the Dragon Field, and of course the whole question of talking to the Venezuelans about, you say, Trinidad and Tobago interest in gas. You never mentioned anything about COVID as you did. Delcy Rodriguez coming to Trinidad to talk about COVID. No, you never said that. You said that they came to talk logically and common sense. about gas. And it raises the question. With the involvement of Traffic Guru and, of course, Bertie, the guru, the bagman for Maduro, and the shipment of gasoline that Paria said they sold, of course, to some Aruba entity, but ended up in Venezuela. And therefore, that to me, based on what you have said in the parliament, different to what we were being told by you and Rowley. You never mentioned, you said in the course of that, you had them here because you, we catch you, your ass as grass. We will deal with it. We will deal with it appropriately. The Americans will know. The Germans will know. The British will know. The Canadians will know. And we finally will have to put another cog in the getting rid of the Rowley administration for its betrayal of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Betrayal. And you should be, of course, ample candidates for what? For treason. And therefore criminal investigations. People, we have come to the end. A pleasant good night to all and sundry. Pleasant good night. It is now, of course, 19 minutes past. And don't forget tomorrow morning, the ground report, Andy, Mike, and myself. And we'll be back here tomorrow night when I'll finish, of course, the Rowley confession that, of course, he lied to us, amenable to Kamala Persad-Bissessar and supported them, when in fact, he brought emails. He exaggerated Section 34. He capitalized with a storm in a teacup, the wish me matter. And he said in no uncertain terms that Kamala Persad-Bissessar in 2015, it was the beginning of the end for the Kamala Persad-Bissessar administration. That's a serious statement outside of the parliament and before the elections. And then went on to say that it is the beginning of their own anti-Kamala PP or UNC administration. But today, he is claiming by some kind of self-righteous indignation and some revision of his nasty and evil and power-mongering and greedy grab for power. And it turns out that he has collapsed on himself, the PNM and the government, a lame duck administration, a moribund administration. That's a shame to lie down. But we will get there. We will get our respect. We will get it eventually. Have a wonderful rest of the night. God bless. God bless. As we, of course, conclude tonight's exercise.
Too much of one thing, good for nothing. Too much of good thing, never enough. I don't know why my black people cannot see. No party never care about we. Every election we so devoted. How we love up the PNM. As soon as election come and go, is only problem after problem. How could we cope? Man lost their work, I ain't seeing no solution. Every time PNM come in power, it takes a toll on black man. I don't want to sound like a racist, but this is what I can see. They just take care of the race, cause they damn well know they have we. I want to ring my bell, wake up Eric Williams. Tell him the party found him, PNM needed immediate attention. Ring my bell, wake up Mother Cornhawk. Tell she to cast a spell on we party, cause it's not what it used to be. I ring my bell, ring my bell, I ring my bell down there. I ring my bell, ring my bell, I ring my bell down there. This thing is becoming out of hand. It's time this damn nonsense stop. If you don't sing a PNM song, from Skinner Park you'll be dropped. Calypsonian could have sing what they want. We were the spokesman for the people. Eric Duffy, Chambers Duncy, when Kamala drunk how she like to pee. Calypsonian know that's no way to go. Too much happening in we country. All this killing spree, young woman bodies, but only about PNM Mother Castle. Every Monday she preach on WAC radio and is the biggest critic of Calypso. Ring me bell for Patsy and Joni. I want them two cultural lovers to know not only PNM song is Calypso. I ring my bell, ring my bell, I ring my bell down there. I ring my bell, ring my bell, I ring my bell down there. Crime will never stop in this country once black people belly empty. How could a man work in CPEP, maintain his whole family? All you say the past regime was so bad, so much wrong thing they done to we. Now that PNM take over, white poor people going hungry. When PNM win, all African grin. Now we get back we country. All they doing is complaining and ain't doing nothing for we. The mess already made, don't sit in the shade and ponder on we problem. Get off your ass and do it fast and find a way to solve them. I want to ring my bell. We tell him among all past police commissioners, up to know it, he I prefer. Ring my bell, wake up the Lord Bryna. Tell him the state of Calypso today is a good thing he passed away.
What is democracy? What is human rights? And to whom is it directed? Suspend the Constitution, lawlessness out of hand. And under this Constitution, there could be no prosecution. It looks like this Constitution is not for the law-abiding man. Only criminals and crooks, to get them off of the hook. Good people must have no fun. They have to be on the run, ducking from bandits, bullets and guns. While they're making a mockery of democracy, violating the law with impunity, and some legal entity defends them with alacrity, while they're making a mockery of democracy. Charge them all as accomplice for every crime in every country. Cause it look like their only mission is to see the guilty go free, while the victim rights go to waste. Nobody to plead their case. How long would we stand and see democracy going crazy? Oh, how unjust justice is made to be. They're just making a mockery of democracy, violating the law with impunity.
You
continue roads and giving potholes. If they are the reason why the economy won't sprout, when you're voting, vote them out, vote them out. If it is the passing laws that them alone can flout, when you're voting, vote them out, vote them out. If it is the building eyesores, east, west, north and south, the same way you vote them in, vote them out. Register and vote them out. The country, vote them out. Vote them out with tempo, they have we in vain. Let's put our country together again. Vote